昨日の AMA ライブに字幕の方を私の方で作りましたので、間違っている翻訳もあるとは思いますが、少しでも参考になれればと思いますので、お時間がある方はぜひご覧ください。
Hello LumaTouch fans, today we're coming to you live from our studio for a special Ask Me Anything about LumaFusion 3.0. We're joined today by our co-founders, Chris Damaris and Terry Morgan. Chris, Terry, welcome.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be here.
Thanks, Josh. Nice to be talking to you all.
Yeah, it's been a very weird year, but it's good to see you both in person again and get the opportunity just to be back together.
Yeah, well, we're all vaccinated and feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back in Seattle. It's been a long time since I've been here. It's fun to meet some of the team members I hadn't even met in person before, so that's really exciting.
Oh, that's right. You came up from Salt Lake City?
Yes.
That's great. Before we get started, I just want to remind the audience here today, we took a few questions before the stream in social media, so we'll be answering some of those, but we'll also be answering some questions that you put for us in the chat. For the questions that you put in the chat, go ahead and put before each question a Q and then your question. That way we can search the questions a little bit easier and make sure we're able to answer as many as possible as we can today. To get us started, Terry, Chris, could you give us an overview of LumaFusion 3.0 and what people can expect in this next update?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get started with a couple of the great features we have in here. One of the first features that I think is going to be a big one, in fact, I know it is from some of the reviews we get, have been asking for it for a long time, is video stabilization. And one of the best parts about this is that we've teamed up with one of the best names in video stabilization for Final Cut Pro, which is CoreMelt. They make a plugin called Lock and Load, and we've licensed their technology to include and make it available for all of our LumaFusion users. And so here it is. So let's take a look at a video clip we have here that is a little bit shaky. So I'll play this back, and you can see that the camera was quite a bit shaky when it was taking this video. And all we have to do now is simply turn on stabilize. Now we have some different presets above it if you know you're going to need strong, but almost always you can just turn it on and let it do the work for you. And now if we play this clip back, you'll see that it is much smoother. If you need to do some individual adjustments, we do have all of the tools you need there to do that. For example, you can turn on shutter correction if you get a little shutter roll in there. Or if you want to go in and explicitly adjust the strength along the horizontal or vertical axis or any of the other capabilities it has, you can work with it. So it's a great plugin for most users. Just turn it on and it'll give you a nice smooth video without any effort. Another great feature that we've added to LumaFusion 3.0 is our resizable UI. And this is frankly one of my favorites, is that you can basically come in and adjust the UI to get exactly what you want. If you want more library, you've got that. If you want more preview, you have that. Or if you want more timeline. And it'll save whatever you've done with this resizable UI in each of the different layouts that it has. And if you ever need to reset, you can just double tap on the little resizer there, which is a little hard to do, obviously. Maybe I won't do that today. Trying to do that while I'm sitting here. I'll get there and finally find it. It's a little easier in person when you're not trying to do it for a demonstration. Right. So, but it really is a nice new feature for working the way you want to work. And then finally, another really big one is the direct external drive editing. So if you have one of these wonderful SSD drives, you know, the Samsung T5 or T7, I'd really highly recommend because it's a little faster. You can now edit directly off the external drives. And there's a set, if you don't want to do it that way, if you still want to work the old way where LumaFusion copies the media onto the device so that it's, you know, always completely secure and available, we do have this available in preferences. So there is this new setting to turn off or on external drive editing, and it explains to you what happens. When you export, you can also use that external drive and export directly to the external drive without using the internal storage. So if you're a little short on storage, this is a big game changer for LumaFusion.
So it doesn't even store a temp file?
Nope, it doesn't store a temp file, which it used to do, and
great.
had to copy it across. Now it just stores directly to the external drive. So we're really excited about that one as well.
Yeah, so let me talk about the other ones. So there are two new audio, well, more than two, but there's, I'm going to go into this audio file. As you see, we have some nice new pretty waveforms. But two things that are really cool that I'm sure you're all going to love is that we now have support for third-party audio plugins. So I have 3 plugins here. I've also got some others installed, and I can bring those into the interface of LumaFusion and reorder them as I see fit. And if I wanted to add one, I'm just going to add this tape cassette here. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this as I play. For instance, this one is a really cool one. You can add wow, you can add noise, you can do some other really cool sounding things. And then it's just on your audio. And what I like about it is we have now taken the interface from that third-party developer and put it right inside LumaFusion. So if you're familiar with that plugin, then it's going to be just like home for you. The other thing that we have is a new graphic equalizer. So I'm going to, oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I'm going to press play, and I'm assuming you can hear this here, but as you see, I can play around with this EQ however I want and get different results. And I can't hear it right now because it's going through the mixer, but I'm assuming it's doing its thing. And let's see. Then, so that I think is, oh, there's one more thing. I will go to the gain. I'm going to open up the numeric keypad. So if I wanted to add or put in a specific amount, or if I just wanted to go one by one, I have much bigger arrows here to do that, nudge buttons. But I could also say I want to put it in at 1.0, enter, and then I would have exactly that thing, that number.
One thing to mention about that too is you can also save values in the save slots up here.
Sure.
So if you press and hold on a save slot, it'll save that value there and you can reuse it. That's really going to be a useful tool for animators when they're in the fit and frame editor to have certain positions that they want to store and restore in there.
I mean, some people have been a little bit like, why is there a calculator in here? But it's really, it is a calculator, but what if you can imagine saying you want to do a 20% size of something, or you want to subtract 10 from everything. So yeah, that's how the numeric keypad works.
That's great, and I think those features are going to be huge for customers, and we've already been seeing a lot of great comments about how they are very excited for this. A question that we're seeing a lot in the chat and over social media is, when can people expect to have access to 3.0 and all these new exciting features?
So we've been working really hard on it, and we're very close. We had talked a little while back about releasing on June 29th, and we're still hopeful, but it may be a few days later than that. We're in the final works of last few bugs are being fixed, and the last few pieces of work, like getting everything localized in different languages, is being done. So, but you can expect it within the next few weeks, and we're really excited to get this in the hands of our customers.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, seems like people are very excited and cannot wait. And as we're looking ahead to 3.0, we also have a number of folks who are even looking further ahead and trying to look into the crystal ball. What's after 3.0? What can customers expect to come after 3.0 is out?
Well, first we have 3.0, which is all free features, but then we're going to have a director's pack, which is an in-app purchase for some very customized features. And then we're going to have a creative pack. So in the director's pack, I'm going to have to read it here because there's lots of stuff in here, is a really big one. It's multicam editing. So I'm going to be able to show a demo of that to you now. But we'll also have video scopes, advanced keyframes, and that means keyframe easing for speed and keyframe curves for positioning and rounded corners on motions. And then advanced external display controls. And those will be setting the frame rate and the resolution for your external monitor. And then in the craft pack, which is coming later, will be subtitles and captioning, which is one of my favorites. It's really a cool interface for being able to import an SRT file, see it all as captions on your timeline, edit those, select different languages, and so on. And I'm going to let Chris tell you the next one because everybody has been really bugging us about this.
Right. So this is one that's been such a long time coming, I know, for users who've really wanted it, and it is speed ramping. And so that'll be coming later this year, and we're really excited. We're going to do a great implementation of it, and we think people will be really happy with having speed ramping. We know a lot of people want it.
Yeah. And then lastly, proxy editing will be what proxy editing is the ability to use files that wouldn't normally be usable by the, they're not compatible with the iPad. So if you have ProRes files or some other type of file that you can't edit with LumaFusion on because it's on an iPad, you can now use this proxy editing to bring those files in, edit in an iPad compatible format, and then when you export, you can link back to the original files. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
That'll make a much better workflow for people who have media from different devices that hasn't been compatible in the past.
That's great. And for multicam, Terry, could you show us a little bit of that? I know some customers know what it is and other ones are just kind of discovering the power of multicam and what it even is. Could you explain that to us?
Yeah. So first of all, let me get to my multicam footage here. Hopefully it's right there. Okay. So multicam is just when you have more than one camera running simultaneously on a shoot. It can be 2 cameras or 12 cameras. It doesn't matter. Anytime there's more than one, it's multicam. So there's a lot of different ways I could see people using this. The traditional one is to use it for like a music video where you have your audio, your master audio, your very clean master audio, and then you have a band or something syncing, lip syncing to that, that playback of that audio, and you shoot that with multiple cameras, or a live event like a concert. So in that case, it's very traditional. You put all your cameras together and cut between them. But you could also use it for like an A/B style interview, just sort of like what we're doing here, where you record the 2-shot and the shot of Chris and the shot of me, and then throw them all together. It'll sync them up automatically, and you can just tap to cut between those things. After you've done that, you have this multicam clip that you can then cut up or do other things too. So let me show you a little bit about that. So right here I have just an empty timeline, and when you create a multicam clip, you're creating a clip, not a project. So just keep that in mind as you go. I'm going to just press this create button and press enter, and you'll see I end up with 12 drop zones here. So I can either just add a clip to the drop zone, or I could mark an endpoint for the clip and add that to the drop zone. Or I can, actually I'm going to take these two off of here and add all these at once to the drop zones. So now what you see, I'm going to raise the interface so you can see I have all 12 cameras running here simultaneously, and if I play those, you can see they're all running in those drop zones. Now, right now we don't have the syncing in. That's going in next week if I'm right. But you will be able to sync to the time code on those clips. These are just examples. The audio on those clips, or you'll be able to say none. And none would mean you have used a clapper slate, and so you're going to mark the endpoint on every clapper and then put those in, and they'll all line up at the start. So I'll just pretend that we're going to use time code, and once I am done with the syncing, that's what this part of the app is for, and then I'm going to say finish. You notice these 2 black holes here are just because those are empty at that, there's no media there, like the camera wasn't running at that point. So I'm going to say finish and say insert and add to switcher. Now, one thing I didn't do is you can also put in your master audio, and that audio would then not be cut when you do this next step, which is the switcher. So I'm going to play. I'm going to start. I have camera 1 is selected, and it's going to start with that one. And as I play, I can just say what it is I want to see. And if these were all synced up clips, you would actually see that they are matching when I cut. They're not. These are just sample clips, but if they were, I would just keep cutting to what I want to see. Now, if I make a mistake and I cut to a black clip, for instance, this is okay, because what I'm going to do is come back into the timeline that it made down here, and I can just choose a different camera, and it's going to cut to that camera up till the next cut, or it'll cut wherever I put my cursor. So if if I set my cursor here and cut to the next, a different clip, it's going to cut up till the next cut. You also have the ability to nudge these cut points, so you'll be able to tap here and then nudge a cut point if you kind of got it wrong. Then when you're done, you close the switcher and you have on your timeline this multi-camera clip. It's also in your library, so you could move it to another timeline. And this has all of your cut clips, and it also contains your master audio. So a couple of things I didn't show is you'll be able to put effects on any of the source clips. So I could even put the same clip in all drop zones and then put different effects and then tap, tap, tap through that and create a really fun edit. Or I could put effects on this final clip here and be able to color correct the whole thing, for instance. So yeah, that's multicam. Sorry, I talked so long.
It's a lot coming. And could you remind us what pack that's going to be in exactly?
Yeah, that's in the director's pack, and that's the first pack we're coming out with after 3.0. And I don't really have the timing for that because, you know, just the way we work as a company is we're done when we're done, and we don't want to put out anything based on some promise that somebody made on camera. So I'm not going to do that.
Fair enough. Well, looking back to 3.0, people were wondering about the drives. Like, what kind of drives would they need to get, Chris? Are there any recommendations? Or?
So, yeah, I mean, I haven't tried all the different brands. You know, we've had a lot of luck with the Samsung SSD drives. They're well known and well, you know, regarded. In our tests that we've done so far, you know, the best as far as both performance and nice cost-performance ratio are these T7 drives. They're a little faster. They're the 1040 megabit per second versus the 540 megabit per second. That's the T5 drives. And so I'd probably recommend pushing up to that just to get better performance if you're doing multi-track editing in particular. We have also been testing with the new iPad Pro that has Thunderbolt and with the X5 drive from Samsung. That gives better performance, but not as much as we expected. And so honestly, you could probably save your money and go with a T7 drive. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if in the future there's a bigger performance improvement as Apple changes the software. And so you wouldn't hurt yourself by going up to a true Thunderbolt drive. And I think that would be a good choice as well.
Fantastic. And we've got this question from a customer over social media, but they were wondering, for 3.0, is that going to be available on Macs as well, or is that only to iOS and iPadOS devices?
Right, so we have already made the app available to all M1 Macs. The iPad version of the app is available on M1 Macs, and the 3.0 version does have some improvements to that running on Macs so that it runs a little better, especially with the resizable UI and some other nice little improvements. One of the small improvements that I think is really nice, and you may have even seen it in the screenshot here when Terry was working, is a little zoom slider at the bottom of the UI so that you can zoom in and out of the timeline without using gestures. And so we've made a lot of improvements there. Now for the wider range of Intel Macs, we're still investigating doing a more complete Mac implementation, but that's not, you know, something we have firmed up yet. Let's put it that way.
Right. And so for features that people have that are not in this one, such as masking, how do people suggest features for future development for LumaFusion and get in touch with us?
Well, the best way to get in touch with us is support@luma-touch.com. Is that right? That's the best way. Sorry, I almost thought there's no dash, but I think there is a dash. So anyway, that's the best way. And honestly, this team is amazing. They answer every one of those every weekday and sometimes on the weekend. So you will get an answer by someone. And the way we work is we work really tight as a team here, and all that information gets put into our weekly meetings and into our backlog. So it's not going to get dropped just because you emailed support.
And I'll add to that, we've implemented a new standard to, as we get multiple requests for the same feature, to make sure we tick that up in priority based on how many features we get, how many requests we get for that feature. So, you know, feel free to send in your request, and we'll add your, you know, your input to that. And as a feature's priority goes up, you know, that it will come sooner. But some features take a long time, so it is a balance between both the technical requirements of the feature and how many people want it. You know, so it's not always one we can say, oh, everybody wants it, but it may be hard to do, so it may take longer.
Speed ramping is a good example.
That's a great example.
That's not an easy thing to do right. Can you talk a little bit about how speed ramping is done on some other apps?
We have looked at it on other apps, and in those cases, often what they do, if it's not rendered and if it's real time, they do the speed in chunks. So it'll do it at 100%, and then 75%, and then 50%, and 25%. So it's not a true ramp. It basically just does these chunks, and it doesn't look all that much better than just switching from one speed to another, which is what Lumafusion currently allows. And we make it easy to switch from one speed to another because we match frames to make sure you don't have to, you know, re-trim your clip to get that. But what we wanted to do is a true speed ramping, where at every frame we're calculating which frame should be displayed based on that speed curve. And so it will require background rendering to do it, but that'll all happen automatically, but you'll get a much better result out of it, and that's what we're shooting for.
That's great. And as people look towards 3.0 and just new devices being made by Apple, what should people look for in their iPad or iPhone or their Mac when they're looking to run LumaFusion?
You can take that.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah. So, you know, the nice thing about what Apple's done is their platform is really good. Even the base level iPad runs LumaFusion really well. My personal favorite, if you're looking to, you know, save a little money but want the power, is the new iPad Air. It has the USB-C port, it has really good performance, but its cost is dramatically lower than the iPad Pro. Now, of course, if you have a little money and you want the top of the line, you want all the best, then the iPad Pros are the way to go. Regardless of which device you get, I would spend your money on storage. Even if you're using the new external drive capabilities, having all of your media on the device and being able to edit it, you know, quickly and not have to worry about that storage limitation, that's an important feature. And so that's where I put your money. If it's a trade-off between which device, pick the one you can get the most storage on.
Well, yeah, because the Air doesn't have that much storage, so now you can use the external storage. That
It does
kind
help
of takes care of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we're getting a lot of questions about masking. Could you just talk about masking and what that means for LumaFusion, and if that might be...
Can you read one of the questions so I know the context?
Yeah, sure thing. Let me find one. We have one from Jonathan. Is there any plans for masking for LumaFusion?
Okay, that's pretty blunt. You know, we are working on a lot of things. There's not masking in the Director's Pack or the Craft Pack, I can tell you that. You know, our intent is to keep going and to keep improving the product and keep making the LumaFusion on iPad as good or better, and a better experience for sure than anything you do on desktop. So yeah, we are going to be going into those things, but they are not, masking is not in the Craft Pack or the Director's Pack.
It's farther down the road, but it is an important one, and we do know it's a high priority as well.
A future wish list thing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question here that is, how is the white balance support, and will you support color correction passports?
Well, color correction is another area that we know we want to, you know, improve on, and we will be working on that in future updates. Again, that's not in the next 2 packs, but it is on our roadmap, and it is something we're investigating. And you know, we have some people on the team who really can dig into that. One of the things we added for the Craft or the Director's Pack is the video scopes, and that's sort of one of the first steps to there, is that is correctly analyzing, you know, the video and giving you feedback on, you know, all of your color ranges within the video, regardless of whether it's HDR or SDR video, and that's sort of our first step in that direction, and we'll be moving forward with that in the future. And so we'll have to look at the color passports. That's something I haven't actually looked at, and we'll certainly keep that one in mind.
I could kind of give you a little look at the scopes.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Could you show us it?
So if you're in the color corrector here, there's this button up here that turns off and on the scopes. It also allows you to, if you long press on it, decide how you want to display the scope. So I pick 3 up like this and turn those on, and I'll get 3 scopes. And then within each scope, you can choose whether you want histogram, waveform, or vector scope. You could have, you know, I could say I just want the blue and green, or just the blue, or all 3 for each of these. And then the middle one, I'll do waveform, and turn on all colors, and so on. So, and these all work in real time. As you play back something, you're going to see them moving. So that's what the waves, the scopes will look like. I think they also display on your external monitor.
Right. If you're doing external monitor display, you can have a display in the corner of your external monitor, and that can really help you get your colors right with the current tools that we have.
Yeah. One thing that's really cool that we keep forgetting to mention is that in 3.0, if you're using an external monitor, you now see the preview both on your iPad and the external monitor. And it sounds like such a small thing. I think we haven't been talking much about it, but for me, it makes external monitor usage doable because I couldn't get used to not seeing my preview on my iPad. So now we'll be able to see it in both places, and I like that.
That'll be fun. And we've got a few questions about the iPhone, and I know we don't have an iPhone plugged up here today, but will it be the same if people are on an iPhone, like in terms of viewing it and being able to use it?
Absolutely. I mean, we've always been, about keeping exactly the same functionality on the iPhone as the iPad. Now, of course, the real estate isn't there, and so we have to make a few little adjustments, but we usually try to fit it. It means sometimes you have to be a little careful with your fingers on there, but you can still do it. And all of these features will be available on the iPhone.
Except the external drive, right? Or is it?
No, yeah. Well, none of the iPhones have USB-C or Thunderbolt ports, and so they will not work with external drives with the external drive editing. That's the one feature that won't be available, you're right. Yeah.
Right, okay, that makes sense. So we have a few questions about the stabilizer, and specifically a request for a warp stabilizer. Could you talk us through what stabilization means and all that?
Well, I'm assuming by warp stabilizer they're using the term that's used in Adobe Premiere. They have what they call the warp stabilizer. This is actually the same kind of technology here, where you're basically analyzing the footage for its dominant motion at each frame and how it's moving, and then adjusting the frame at each. You're basically scaling out and then adjusting the frame to either moving it or sizing it so that it smooths out the motion through there. And that's really what a warp stabilizer is. Now, there's another type of stabilizer that's available that will actually fill in bits of the image if things are way off, and we're not doing the in-painting style one that is a higher end type of stabilization that we don't have available at the moment. But this is incredibly powerful stabilization and should meet most people's needs.
Right. To look at another 3.0 feature, the plugins, how do they work? Are they something you can only get from LumaTouch, or can you use any plugin?
That's the nice thing. These are actually available in the App Store from third parties. These are audio, what are called AUV3 audio units, and that is a plugin standard that Apple does allow on iPhones and iPads. And so you can go to the App Store and just search AUV3, and you'll find a wide range of these plugins. Now, one thing to keep in mind, we support filter or effect plugins, not instrument plugins. There are some there that are called instruments, and those will not work in LumaFusion. Those are available for things like GarageBand. So avoid those, but otherwise there's a wide range of plugins out there. A lot of our users are already using a plugin called Bruce Free, which removes noise for voice audio, and that works now directly within LumaFusion. So it's great. Now you don't have to go back out and back in, to get your audio cleaned up, and that's a really nice feature. One thing to note: some of these plugins require an in-app purchase to work, and that's not through our app, that's their own app. But if you haven't purchased it and try to use it in LumaFusion, it might pop up the requester saying, hey, you need to purchase this. That's from that company. So, just look and see what the company requires and what their purchase options are.
Yeah, so one thing is when you download one of these plugins, you have to open the plugin first, and then you can close it and then reopen. I don't think you have to reopen LumaFusion. It just shows up in LumaFusion.
Yeah, once you've opened it once on the iPad, then you go to LumaFusion, go to the plugin library, and you can organize it and add it to the list of plugins available within LumaFusion.
Speaking of plugins, we have a question here from Daniel that he wants to know, is there a way to have video plugins rather than audio plugins?
We would love to have a plugin standard from Apple for video plugins, but we haven't got that yet. And so you can see our first integration was with CoreMelt for doing the video stabilizer, and we've done some work there to basically provides sort of a plugin interface. So we're working with other companies now to bring their plugins. They have to be done one at a time and integrated into LumaFusion because there isn't a plugin standard. But we're working on that, and maybe in the meantime, Apple might come out with a new standard in the future. Doesn't look like it for this year, but maybe next year.
Always waiting, always new things coming down the pike. Another question from YouTube. They're saying that they're curious what accessibility features are going to be coming down the line to make it more accessible to more people.
Well, I think one of the big things is subtitling. And I don't know, can you answer that?
We are working on that. It's something that as a team, we do have a priority for working on accessibility. So one of the first things we're doing is just making sure that we go through the app and make sure that all of the elements of the app are identified properly for accessibility and can read back. Beyond that, we're starting to create some stories for what can we do to make it more accessible for different types of users. And I don't have anything definite that I can give you right now, but it is a priority for us. I know a lot of our team, they're really excited about making sure that the app is as accessible as possible. And Apple this year has added some new features to allow us to group sections of the app for accessibility, which we didn't have before. And that was actually an important difference because when you have 60 controls on the screen and you just sort of have to go through those all at once, it was almost impossible to organize that in a way that would be useful. And now that's one thing we will work on, is to group it by area so that you can quickly get to, say, the library, then get readbacks of each of the controls for there, or use one of the accessibility controls to get through those. So those are the kind of things we're working on.
Okay.
And we'd love to hear customers' feedbacks on things they think would improve the app for accessibility.
That's fantastic. And what's the best way to send that information in?
Again, it's support@luma-touch.com. That's always the best way.
We read all the emails, we promise. This is a creative question. So in the multicam feature, will you be able to mix videos with different FPS and keep them synced?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and that is something from day one, we've even had in the main timeline is being able to keep things in sync, that are separate videos, and that will be a part of multicam as well.
Here's one from Rob Montgomery. For journalists, it would be incredible to auto-generate subtitles for interview clips without having to go to a separate app.
Would auto-generate subtitle clips?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's not in version 1 of subtitling. It's a big job, but that is on the roadmap to do that, Rob. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, and Apple has provided a speech-to-text capability that we will take advantage for that, so it won't even have to go off device for that. You won't need to buy a service, unless you want a higher-end service, but you can at least get a really quick, decent subtitle clip, generation is what we're hoping for.
Fantastic. I have a question here from Instagram, kind of asking about how we go about partnerships. They're a darkroom user, and they're just curious about how we go with finding partners to work with.
Oh, partners for the app?
Partners for the app, yeah.
I guess we just have been contacted by people, or if we see some interesting technology or an interesting app that just seems like, there has to be a synergy and a use for that. And a workflow that I can think, if we could only do this, then it would make everything flow nicely. Then we would just reach out to them.
Right, and we've actually talked with the darkroom folks. They're a really neat team. We haven't found a specific integration that we want there, but we've talked to them because they have a great app and we have a great app, and there's things we can do in the future. They just announced, I just saw an article this morning, they announced their new shortcuts integration for some neat automation, and it made us start talking about what can we do in LumaFusion there. So there's a lot of synergies between these companies that are sort of fun.
Yeah, and we actually, for those of you that don't know, in our Seattle office, we actually share an office with Filmic Pro, so we're chatting with those folks all the time and getting to work with them very closely. Going back to the M1 Mac, what's the difference between it and how you use it on an iOS or iPad OS device?
Okay, so the things that we're working on right now, generally it's the same app and it works almost identically. There are some unique differences as far as file handling, of course, is very different on there, so we're working to improve that. It all works right now, but we're working to make the menus more, a better menu set that's a more Mac-like menu set. Obviously, we added the zoom slider, so you don't have to do a pinch to zoom in and out on the timeline. Those type of things we're working on, but in general, it's the LumaFusion experience. other than missing one important feature, and that's touch. You're using a mouse, and it does feel different because of that. I still like going back to touch, but the nice thing is that you can quickly send your project archives from your iPad to the desktop if you want the larger screen. That can be a really useful and fun workflow.
And so we have a question about transitions and effects, and I know that's not in 3.0, but Terry, could you talk us through how you might be able to go do some of that inside of Lumafusion already, make custom effects and things like that?
Oh boy. Okay, that's a big one. Yeah, I mean, I can. So when you have, if you have 2 clips, and you have multiple tracks in Lumafusion, so I can see I'm backing this clip up. I'm just going to back it up 4 seconds. So what you would do in Lumafusion is just go to probably the second clip would be the easiest. I'm going to go to the color and effects, and I'll just start with, I don't know, let's see. I'm going to go, let's see, where is the zoom blur? That's okay. So there we are. I'm going to turn off that one. We've got the long zoom here. So on the first frame here, I'm going to set the long zoom, to 0, turn on my keyframing, and then I know that I went about 4 seconds. I mean, I can just solo this so I can see just this clip, and there we are. And then at this frame, I'm going to zoom that up. Oh, actually I did it backwards. Gee. Well, I'm going to do that, and then on this keyframe, I'm going to do that. All right, and then on the one below that, I'm going to go down to this point, double tap, and I'm going to solo this one. Now, if I go to that same effect, which was this zoom blur somewhere, there we are. So at this frame, I'm going to put a keyframe right here. Oh, sorry, I'm turning it off. And then go to the end. Sorry, did it backwards again. This is the problem. Okay, so then you're going to go to the end and zoom that one. Now, now what you would see is not quite right. But then you take the dissolves and mind you, I am actually using very alpha software here. But then you'd put dissolves on either end, so you are then transitioning with the keyframe. So you could actually create any kind of look during those dissolves.
Right, and you can actually do multiple layers. Now, sort of getting back to one question here is we will be adding more transitions in the future, and we even have sort of in the works an ability for users to be able to add real transitions in the future. That's a ways down the road, but we do have plans for that. And so we realize right now it's a matter of doing your own keyframing and animating it the way you want, which was what Terry was showing here, which isn't always the easiest thing. People obviously like to have pre-made transitions ready to go, and so we will have more of that in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
So I totally messed that up, but anyway. I totally messed that up. But you can, I don't know, Scott, you can see I put the complete weird effect on the second one, but you can see as I transition, and it would then be transitioning between the two. Never mind.
The adventures of live editing.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, maybe we should do that sometime. Have a live edit, no pressure.
Yeah, right.
That'd be fun. This is more on the playback side. It's a question from Facebook. Can Lumafusion 3.0 play Red, Raw, R 3D files?
No, it cannot. Currently, Lumafusion is limited to the files that are supported by iOS natively, and that primarily includes any H.264 or H.265 compressed files, including H.265 with transparency. That's one of the nice things that was added a couple of years ago. For Red Raw files, you would need to convert those to one of those two formats for the moment. Now that's where the proxy editing will come in the future, is you will be able to just drag a Red Raw file, we'll automatically generate the proxy, and you'll just be able to edit as though it was ready and to go. But we also hope that in the future there will be more formats supported on iOS directly.
Can you, I'm kind of going to surprise Chris with this, but can you talk about one of the things that wasn't in the WWDC keynote, but you learned later through the sessions.
Yes.
That I love. So,
So I assume you're talking about the photo cloud ID. Yeah, that's really exciting to us. A few years back, we actually had to change the way we worked with photos because there were so many problems with it. Anytime anybody turned on or off a feature on photos, they would lose all the video that was in the app because we were trying to directly access it from the Photos library, and that's when we started importing it into LumaFusion. Well, Apple has announced for iOS 15 that we now have access to a cloud ID that will identify a piece of media on all the user's devices, so that now that allows a number of things. One, we can directly access the media from photos, so don't have to make a copy of that either, and we'll definitely implement that, sometime this fall. But even more importantly, you'll be able to do a project archive from one device to another without all of that media, because you already have it on both those devices in your Photos library, and we'll automatically link back up to those media, to the different media. And it will even allow in the future for automatic iCloud syncing of your projects, where you won't even have to do that manual step, and you could just go from your iPhone, start editing, move over to your iPad and continue editing without even thinking about it. That's where we're going to head with that, and that's really exciting for us.
That's what I'm excited about.
That is really exciting. That'll be fun. So I have a question here as a gift lover myself. It's a question, support for AMPG or GIFs?
That's something that is a feature request we had a fair number of. It's not one that's right on our roadmap at the moment, but we will keep it in mind. It's one I'd like to have too, of course, and so yes, it's there, and hopefully we'll get to that soon.
In good time, time. Another kind of show us some stuff. Can you show us some advanced keyframing in the app?
Oh yeah, I guess I could, because I have, okay. Let's just go into this weird thing I made. It's now spinning, and I'm gonna go into the frame and fit editor. So I'll turn on keyframes, and you'll notice it just looks like normal. I'm gonna make this one smaller, and then I'm gonna put a third keyframe over here and go back to the beginning. I'll make this one small too, so you can really see what's going on. So the first thing you'll notice is that you can see the line that goes from the first keyframe to the second keyframe to the third, and I can go to those each individually. If I tap on this button, you'll see an ease editor and a curve editor. So right now we're in the ease editor, and ease means just speed or the temporal behavior of it. So you can see on the first keyframe, I have it set to ease out, and then on the second keyframe, I have it set to ease in and ease out. If I wanted those, which you probably would on a middle keyframe, to be linear, so it doesn't slow down at that keyframe, you can just set those both to linear there. When you're in ease, you have a handle that you can then adjust to how you want that to be. So I'm going to set to linear and then go to the curve editor. So right now you see we have a corner curve, which isn't normally what anybody would want. So I'm going to set those to curve, and you can see I can now make this motion go just around a nice arc. It's kind of a long clip, so it's going to take a minute to watch this, but it in this case should not stop at that middle keyframe because I set that to linear, and it should now do this nice curve around, and I can just zip through that so you can see it's now curving. If I set that back to linear, you have the corner, and it's going to go like this.
And our users have been creating a lot of keyframes to try to reproduce that in the past, and now they can do it with just turning on that feature.
Right, so if you have a title, the typical one is you have a title you want to slide in, and so you set it to ease in instead of going zhunk. It's now nicely sliding in. Beautiful.
Little small tweaks here and there to
Yes.
make it just a little bit better. So we got another request actually to see something in the app. They want to see the audio EQ, just see what that looks like and how that works.
Oh, the audio EQ. Okay, so I did a little bit of that, but I will go back in here and
they're saying maybe a higher low roll off.
Okay, yeah, so I'll zero these here, I start from 0. The reset button will be here. It's not there today, it's not working yet, but, so I'm gonna 0 them. So you're playing your audio. I'm assuming that you can hear this Let me turn off the tape cassette just in case that's gonna sound really weird. Anyway, you can hear this, and as you're playing, you can adjust your low roll off, and it's by hertz and kilohertz. So you could do a high roll off. You could do the highs up. You could do the mid up, and then you can, just like anything else, you could save that as a preset and apply it to multiple things.
Oh wow, that should save some time for sure.
Yeah, and it's right in here. It's right in with your gain and your pan, and it's just like one of the basic things that's in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I have a question here from one of our top fans on Facebook. His name is Nikolai. It's a question about anime curve control in the director's pack. He loves using 6 layers of video layers to animate parallax between printed layers.
Wow.
Giving the illusion of a moving camera. His question is, will it be possible to copy animation from one layer to another, but to scale the animation in size?
As far as duration or...
Well, the scaling of the FX store.
Yeah, now we already, when you copy a keyframe animation from one clip to another, we already scale it to the duration of that clip, the new clip that it goes into. If he's talking about scaling it for actual size like dimensions, that we don't have in there as an automatic feature yet, but that's a great feature request. Those are the kind of things that after the initial implementation, I can see us implementing a lot of new things like different ways to paste it, whether you do want it scaled or want it to the original duration, or you want to multiply all the keyframes by a certain, dimension to get a bigger motion. Those kind of things I think are all possible for sure.
We have a question related to the Apple Pencil. I know we have a number of customers who love that. Will the undo function be added? You can tap the pencil and then undo things inside Lumafusion?
We will have to look into that. I hope that's something that we can make easily available through the APIs, but I haven't looked at that myself yet, so I'd have to look at it before I could say yes or no for sure.
All right. I know there's always great things coming out from Apple. We're always kind of going with it as we learn about it as well. Speaking of new things, someone's asking about keyboard shortcuts and how you would make those work. Specifically, will we add keyboard shortcuts since iPad OS make them external on the keyboard more powerful?
Right, so we already have keyboard shortcuts available. Now Apple is making some new capabilities for those keyboard shortcuts, which will be really nice to be able to group them within the, when you hit the command key to bring them up. And that also will translate to menus on the Mac, the M1 Mac version. So we are working on that right now to improve that and make it even better than we have right now.
Oh, and we do have this keyboard overlay too for our own keyboard shortcuts.
Oh, the editor key one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's great.
I don't have it on my iPad here, but it's just an overlay that sits right on top and shows you every button, what it does and stuff.
It's very helpful, helps speed up the editing process. So we have a question from Rob Montgomery, another one. Is there a way for Filmic Pro clips to show in a Filmic Pro named folder when sending the clips from, say, Filmic Pro to Lumafusion?
So my recommendation to do that would actually be to use the Files app in that case. Right now, I think we do try to, if you do an add link to folder, we try to recognize Filmic, but I think it still shows up as documents because we don't get any identifier of another app when you use the Files provider. So the best way to do that, honestly, would be to just use the Files app to copy it into a folder within User Media within Lumafusion. So you could name a folder Filmic Pro within User Media and then just move or copy those files over and they will show up that way. We're hoping to improve that with the linked folder in the future where you could rename a folder so that you can have any kind of naming you want within the Files provider as well. So that's something that we're working on for the future.
Very nice. And we have another request to see something on the iPad, Terry. Can you please demonstrate repositioning of keyframes?
Oh, yeah, sure. That one, I was right. Let's see. To go here. I was in here. Since I have these keyframes already, I'll just take this one. And if I hit long press, I can move. If you can see the keyframe moving left and right 10 frames, or left 10, or one frame and 1 frame forward. So you have these ability to move these keyframes down there. Super easy.
Yep.
Very nice. Well, and we're coming up on the end of time, but Terry, Chris, what are your favorite features coming in Lumafusion 3.0? You only get one. I know there's lots, but what's your favorite?
Well, Yeah, it would be between the audio EQ and the resizable UI, I guess. I just love to be able to adjust things the way I want them.
Do you have a preferred setting for the adjustable UI that you've fallen in love with as we've gotten through development?
Well, the thing I like about it is if I'm working on a really tall timeline, I can see all my tracks and not have to go up and down. So I can set it with lots of tracks, and that just works for me.
Nice. Chris, how about you?
So I have to admit, I'm excited about CoreMelt's video stabilization in the app. It's really quite nice. And I have a lot of old footage of my kids from well before I had a camera with video stabilization in it, so I think it'll be really useful to me.
I tried to shoot a stabilization shot for a demo this morning so I could show you how it works, and I just couldn't get my hands to, like, I was trying to walk with it, and it's like, I am so used to, like, really tucking my elbows in and being, you know, still that I was like, I just can't do it.
It's harder than it looks to create a bad clip. Is there, in terms of what the stabilizer can and can't do, are there any things that people should keep in mind when they're coming to use the stabilizer in 3.0?
Well, you know, it's not going to be able to fix every, you know, situation. Sometimes there's, you know, if you have a massive amount of motion in it, it's not going to be able to figure that out. And even some clips have some problems with them that it may not be able to do perfectly. One of the things I would recommend to them, if it doesn't work the first time, use our optimize and consolidate function that's in the project manager. It will basically repackage the video, and sometimes the stabilizer will do better with that repackaged video. We're still figuring, you know, there's so much media out there that we don't know every situation that's going to happen, but, you know, so far it's been working really well, and we're excited about that.
You know, stabilizers don't work terribly well if you're panning because it's the sideways motion, but that's with every stabilizer, so you just gotta, you know, try it.
Give it a try. And let us know if it doesn't work. You know, if you can't get it to work, then you know who to contact, support@luma-touch.com, and we'll look into it. You know, often if you send us the piece of media that's having a problem, we can try it out here and figure out what the problem is, and we'll work, you know, we'll send it to CoreMelt and they can analyze it and help figure out why it's not working.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Chris and Terry, so much for your time today. It was great to sit down with you and just hear a little bit more about LumaFusion 3.0. Before we go, could you just remind us, you know, when people can expect this and like where we are in the process?
Right. So again, 3.0, we are in the final stages, you know, of preparing for release. So within the next few weeks, you will see that on the App Store, and it's a free update, and it'll just show up, and you can download it and continue working.
But remember, some of the things I showed today are not in 3.0. They're in the Director's Pack or the Craft Pack. So.
Good things come to those who wait. So hopefully we'll get that to you soon. And to everyone that tuned in today, thank you so much. We hope to do more of these in the future. If we didn't have a chance to answer your question, we'll try to get back to those in the chat. But also feel free to send that to us at support@luma-touch.com, and we'll answer those directly over email for you. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those places. But until next time, we'll see you later, editors. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.